Alright, I'm gonna just go ahead and start the video and just save it and share it on other social media outlets. For those of you who don't know, I'm Ryan Jenkins. I am a mother, a mentor, an author, a poet, spoken word artist. I am a reader, and the purpose of the JENX Book Club is to promote reading, especially among young adolescents, and to talk about what I'm reading and what's out there and give book reviews. What I'm definitely want to do before I get into what my broadcast is, number one, happy Father's Day to all the fathers out there. I hope you enjoyed your Father's Day. I hope it's been a blessing to you. I hope you received everything you ever wanted, if not more. This is the one day that I feel like, sometimes y'all get slighted. But if you have awesome wives and awesome children, hopefully you're able to receive and experience and reap some of the blessings that you were given to your kids all year long. To the fathers to be, I know you're looking forward to that child coming. But happy Father's Day. But pretty much the purpose of the JENX Book Club is something I'm launching electronically right now on social media. Is something I would eventually like to do face to face, but it's just to promote reading and to promote other books that I'm reading. So I'm going to tell you briefly about what I've read, and then throughout this week and this week alone, I'm going to have separate live posts of when I talk about a book that I have read. So what I will do is I will post the books and the days I'll be talking about those books. So I'm making it live. So if anyone wants to chime in and make any comments or ask any questions, you're welcome to. And I'll also always share the broadcast again, and I'll put it on IGTV so you can see it. But pretty much, happy reading. If you are not already reading a book, like I have to get on my son right now and make sure that he's read some of the book that he's supposed to read, you should be reading. One thing I love about Summit Middle Parkway, where he attends school, is they have not only reading, but he can go attend guest events at the Richland County Public Library. He can also, when he goes to church, he can write down notes based on the speaker, and that's one of the activities. They have a News ELA link where he can join with a class and take a quiz, which I'm making him take a quiz a week, which he owes me one today. I'm going to get on him about that. I'm going to also have him work on some writing, but make sure your children are reading parents, and make sure you follow up with them. If you would like what is called a reader's response journal, you can easily look those up, questions up. If not, I can share a document with you. If you DM me your email address, I can send you what I have. So again, make sure your kids are reading and follow up with them and make sure they're comprehending. For them just to sit there and you watching them read a book, you need more than that. Okay, so have follow-up questions to ask them. I would even read with them. I saw one of my cousins, her daughter was challenged to read so many books this summer, so she's reading books along with her daughter. I'm doing the same thing myself. We were challenged as a staff at Longleaf Middle School to read so many books. And I want to say I read at least 3 of them. So I want to share some of those books that I am currently reading. So give me a second to get into my pictures. And I will admit, it may take me longer than other. Americans by Lauren Wilkins. This is not a young adult book. This is definitely an adult book. I will admit that I started reading it by Wilkenson and I got bored. I'm not saying it's not good. It drew me in within the first 5 pages because someone tries to kill her in the first 5 pages while her kids are in the home. So then we realize that she isn't a spy, and at that point, I don't know if she was a former spy or what, but she ends up taking the kids back. And I should have people's names right now, and I don't. But she ends up taking the main character taking her kids to her mom for safety, and then she goes back into the history of how she met their father and how she became a spy. So it became more of a history lesson and spitting out facts. So I got bored, so I put that one down for now. All right, another book that I picked up that I'm currently reading right now is American Street by, is it Ibby? And I apologize if I'm messing this up, her last name. But I also already read Pride by her, and I'm going to tell you about American Street. American Street, and I wish I would have brought these books in here with me. This would be a better broadcast if I knew people's names. But the main character and her mother decide they're leaving Haiti and they're going to the U.S. They make it seem like they're going there to visit briefly, but the reality is they're going to stay. Well, the daughter, because she was born in the U.S., the main character, she's able to go through. The mom is immediately detained. We need you to come with us, ma'am. And so here you have this daughter who's never been in America, who's never met these relatives she's been talking with on Facebook for years, face to face. The first time and last time she met them, she was born, and then the mother went back to Haiti. So now she ends up in Detroit with family she doesn't really know. Immediately, because she felt a connection with the aunt, she goes back and forth between Creole and English, and the aunt, to me, is kind of harsh to her. Her cousins, she has 3 older cousins. One, you can tell, is an intellect and takes her schooling seriously. Now, I apologize, I don't know names right now. Pray for my memory. But then the 2 twin cousins who are along with her, go to school with her, kind of fast, kind of do their own thing, hanging out late at night, even though I got to go to school the next morning. I'm with this guy that's not really that good for me. It's like she's been thrown into this life and she's going to have to adapt without her mom. And that's horrifying. You went all your life with a mother, and then all of a sudden your mother is taken from you for what she didn't understand, because she felt like the documentation was right. And she didn't understand why her mother's being taken. I think one thing I will say about, and I hope I'm saying her name right. One thing about Ibby's books, you get so frustrated with her characters, and they really do make you mad. So like the last book, Pride, I was frustrated with the main character. This book, I'm frustrated with the characters around the main character, because she is really struggling to transition, and I don't feel like they're sympathizing with her. So I'm reading that too. The last book I read by Ibby, and I apologize for this because I did save these photos in a particular folder, and it's not coming up. So I got to go through all the pictures to pull up the one picture. But I'm briefly telling you about these books that I've read, just in case you want to jump on it and go ahead and read the book yourself. The last book I read by Ibby, and I apologize, Pride. And the ZOBOI, I may be saying it wrong. So you have the main character, Zuri, who is basically watching her neighborhood go through a form of gentrification, where you're taking, let's say they decided to take, and they've done this in Colombia, where they take the poor areas, completely tear them down, and build up apartments and condos that can't be afforded by the people in the area, and they're trying to bring in a certain demographic. And what's ironic about this book, and I told y'all before, it reminds me of Renee Watson's first book. And I should have saved that one, but it reminds me of that one. Unlike Renee's, it was a white family that purchased a house in the Portland neighborhood. And Brunswick, where Zuri lives with her sisters, it's a black family that purchases the house across the street, and they basically redid the house. You could tell Zuri does not appreciate that. And It's almost like you're not black enough. You're just trying to come in and take over our neighborhood and take away what is traditional to us and what works for us. And she feels like her neighborhood is slowly slipping away from her. It's obvious that her and the guy across the street that's on age with her, something's going to happen between them, but they're fighting it. But I don't want to get into deeper detail about pride. This is not just pride. This is pride in her neighborhood. Pride in what she believes her blackness, and she feels like it's being interfered with these new people coming around and these new restaurants and whatnot that are coming in her neighborhood. Again, I'm going to devote a day to do a broadcast strictly for this book. I've already told you about Allegedly. I've read that. Awesome book. It's a young lady who at age 9 is accused of killing a 3-month-old. And then she comes out and says, you know what, because she found out she's pregnant. And she's been in and out of prison, jail, group homes. And she finds out she's pregnant, and they automatically tell her, we're going to take away your baby because of the crimes you've committed. She was convicted by a jury. And she says, allegedly. Y'all never heard me say I did it. So the whole book, you're trying to figure out, did she actually do it? And what I love about how Tiffany D. Jackson wrote this book is that she brings in multiple texts as far as like articles and the accounts from the psychologists and from the school counselors and from the teachers and from inmates. So you don't just hear, you're not just in the head of the main character. Okay? The next book that I have finished is The Poet X. I'll admit this was a very hard book to read, even though it was written in poetry. This is by ACVEDO, and I might be saying that wrong. ACVEDO. And she basically is struggling. The main character is struggling because she's questioning everything about life. She's a teenager. And you have her mother, who is a very strict Catholic, who believes in going to confirmation class, who believes you're going to carry out the ways of Jesus. But what bothers me, because I'm learning things as a mother, and especially under the teachings of my pastors, is that if you don't come to your children with the love of God and come with them in a loving way, it's you can push them into wrath. So she's sworn away from boys. She can't kiss. She can't do nothing. And when she does venture into these thoughts, she ventures through her poetry. And you can tell she wants to become a part of this spoken word group that's created her school. But her mom wants her to go to confirmation class. So again, I don't want to go into detail about it. She's an awesome poet, and that's what I love about the book. It's written in poetry. I love books like that because it's very easy to read. I want to say I read this in a matter of 2 or 3 days. Might have been less than a week. It was a very good book, but again, I will give more details. Another book that I have finished, I actually finished this book before the school year ended, is Dear Martin by Nick Stone. If you have not, to me, this is The Hate That You Give, the abbreviated version. It is so much that happens in this book, and I have to sit down and talk to you about it later. But this is another book that, again, this week, I will devote to a live post to tell you more and more about it. Dear Martin begins with the main character, Justice, who he finds out his ex-girlfriend is drunk, and she's trying to drive home. She's biracial, and she looks white, but she is biracial. She's half black, half white. So she's fighting him, and he's trying to get her in the car, and even though he doesn't know how he's going to get home, he knows he cannot let her drive. And of course of him trying to help her, he's harassed by a cop. The cop tries to arrest him. He gets out of it, but it makes him question who he is. So he decides to write in a journal to Martin Luther King Jr. because he just did a study of Martin Luther King Jr. and he wonders if Martin Luther King Jr. was alive today, how would he respond to some things I'm responding to? Yeah, I'm from the hood, but let's be real. I don't dress like a thug. I don't look like a thug. I go to a predominantly white school on scholarship. I'm one of the top in my class. I'm not a threat. So why did the cop think I'm a threat? So it really does look at a lot when it comes to Black Lives Matter. Some of the issues that we're still facing today that Martin Luther King Jr. faced. Is a really good book. So I will go more into detail about that. The last book I want to bring up that I just finished last night. And I still got some more to read because they have what is called the history part of it at the end. And I wanted to share that book with you. And I wanted to go ahead and go in detail about it tonight because that's fresher on my mind than anything. So it's called This Promise of Change, and it's written by Joanne Allen Boyce, who is actually part of what is called, I've never heard of them, the Clinton 12. And this was a group of 12 students who were asked to integrate into Clinton's. They were the first ones to integrate into a high school in Tennessee. And what I love about how it was written, and that's why I was easily able to read it in less than a week, and I love books like this. Parents, if your children struggle to read, this is a good place to start. Find books that write in poetry and write in prose. There's some books I can recommend to you if you're interested. But it's shorter. I want to say Kwame Alexander writes all his books like these, and they're easier to read and chop up and master the understanding and ease them into reading. Nikki Grimes, Call Me Mr., and Dark Suns are some good titles that are written in poetry. So it is easier to digest to me. So this is Joanne's account of her integrating into a school. And what's different from her story that I read from other stories is that it started off okay, and then eventually the mobs came. Unlike other stories we read, the mobs came right when they tried to integrate. I love this story because I think every child, especially every Black child, needs to read a story about integration, because they don't realize we have some of the stuff we have because of Brown and Board of Education. Now, granted, we can argue that in some cases it doesn't apply, but for the most part, the reason why some of us, the majority of us, are in classrooms with not just all Black kids, but the reason why it is integrated is because of Brown versus Board of Education. And we forget sometimes the sacrifices that were done on the behalf of these people who went first and what they endured. And matter of fact, I want to read an excerpt. She said, this is right after Thanksgiving, they're back. And she said, over turkey and gravy, did they give thanks and make plans to give grief? Over offered prayer, did they beseech God and prepare to besmirch us? In Jesus' name, did they smear our names and scheme to smite us? Who counts blessings only to crowd in the street throwing rocks and screaming filth? Who gives thanks? And I didn't copy the other page, but she's just talking about how y'all supposedly love Jesus, but y'all are treating us like the scum of the earth, all because you don't want us to mix with you. And, it really opens your eyes, if you haven't already been opened before, to know that people went through a lot. A lot of our ancestors went through a lot to integrate and to make sure that we have the education that we have. Here's an actual picture of Joanne, who is it's her and the other lady who co-wrote the book with her. Okay? But Joanne actually goes around and speaks to people about her experience as being one of the first to integrate into, they said, the first high school in Tennessee. And a lot of people don't know that their story happened before Ruby Bridges' story and the Little Rock Nine. For some reason, it did not receive the same. It received the same press because they had. She had a lot of accounts. That's what I love about the book. It's written in poetry, but she also had accounts from newspapers, actual interviews from different people who were involved. At the end of the book, they talk about all the 12 students who integrated into the school, what ended up happening with them. Did they finish? Did they not finish? What are they doing with their lives now? Are they still alive? So it really is history and poetry, which is something you don't always see. You always see a lot of fiction books written in poetry, but not history. So here's another picture of Joanne. That's the infamous picture of her and the other 11 individuals who integrated. Joanne was either a sophomore or a junior when she integrated. And of course, and here's the actual picture. They always talk about up the hill. You notice behind them, there's actually a hill. And they came down the hill always to go to this school. But when I say it got to a point last night, I was very tired because Joshua wasn't feeling well and I'm hearing him talking in his sleep. But then at the same time, I wanted to finish this book. And it kept you, it really opens your eyes. And I know me as a student, I actually want to go back to school now even more because I understand the sacrifices that were done. And I hope that more students, I had a poem I wrote called Encore, and maybe I will share that this week too. But in the poem Encore, it talks about how you haven't forgotten what was done for you. And that's why you take pride in your education. That's why you take it seriously, because you realize when you think about what Black people went through, so you can sit where you're sitting and experience what you're experiencing, you won't want to take that for granted, and you really get an account. So I recommend every parent, every teacher, if that child has never read a story about integration and what people went through to integrate into schools, this will be an awesome one. Not Forged by Fire, but Sharon Draper has Fire from the Rock. Hers, I heard, is a historical fiction, and historical fiction is I take an event that really happened, but the actual account of what happened is fictional, but is based on something happened in real history. This book right here, A Promise to Change, is actually a biography, an autobiography, where this young lady wrote with the author about her transition, what she experienced integrating into, it was Clinton High School, the threats they received. Like at one point they are escorted by the military. 1 minute they're escorted by the police, and at one point they're just on their own. And that was a scary thing to witness while she was recounting what she went through. And so I highly, highly, highly recommend that book. So again, what I'm going to do this week, I already told y'all, just to kind of recap, the purpose of the book club is to promote reading. And what I'll do is let you know what I'm reading at the moment. And as a result, I will share it with you. Another book that I'm reading, I just realized I forgot to tell you about, and I'm trying to find the picture. And I wish these pictures had saved in the spot where I saved it so I can get to it, but it's not doing that. So let me find the actual picture. And I apologize for this, y'all. But again, this week, the books that I have read, I'm going to give you a more detailed account. I'm not going to do a detailed account about The Promise of Change because I said I don't want to give y'all too much and then it takes away from the book. But the other books, I'm going to give a more detailed account of what I read and what I loved about it. But it's called What Mama Left Me, and this is also by Renee Watson. I love Renee Watson. When I say I love her, I love her. And what I love about her is that, some of our authors, and it's not to take away from them and what they do, feel a need to include the language, the cursing and whatnot, because we do have kids that curse. I know one thing I do with my writing, I don't include, if I include any cursing, it's like those small words. I really don't. I don't think it's appropriate. That's just me. But I'm not going to stop reading a text because of the language. Because let's be real, when it comes to certain movies, unless it's that bad, we watch it. Okay? I'm not condoning it, but it is what it is. But what Mama left me, you're automatically wondering what happened to the mama. And it begins with, we know the mom is dead. We know she's lying in the kitchen, but we don't know what happened to her. So you have the main character, and I'm mad. I'm actually going to go get this book because I'm mad. I'm not knowing names the way I should. Got my son in here.
You're in my room.
Joshua, but where's the book?
I don't know.
That's not the one. I already told them about that one. It's a paperback book.
Oh, sorry.
I'm sorry, y'all. I can't find the book. And I had it and was reading it. And now I can't find it. And I apologize, y'all. But in the main book, she's basically rediscovering life without her mom and her dad. And even though her dad is known for selling drugs, and being very abusive towards the mom, the way Renee paints the picture, you really don't know what happened to the mom. You can assume, because at first you don't know if the dad was there or not in the house when the mom died. So her grandparents immediately, the dad's mom said, I'm willing to take him, but, the main character says, I don't want to live with her because she has no pictures of my mom in the house. So she, and it's not really, she's not even given a choice, but she ends up living with the grandparents who are older. They're, the granddad is a pastor. And as she's learning to live life without her mom, the brother's learning to live life without the mom too. And you could tell he's being rebellious. He wants a certain lifestyle. He sees his friends living, and he decides to pick up a job. Now, mind you, he's only like 11, 12, maybe. She's 13. And basically, he's used to, because the dad sold drugs, and the dad, gave them whatever they wanted. And he wasn't the best dad. He can be very abusive. There were times where her and her brother would hide out in the closet, and, she recounts all these memories. But what I love about the book is the love of God that the grandparents pour on her and on the brother, and they try to be the best examples and try to help them through. And even though they're grieving themselves, they're grieving their daughter, they are a very strong example and a very loving example. They're loving them through. They don't let them have their way. They don't let them do whatever they want. Like it's one scene in the book where the main character, and I'm mad, I don't know what I did with the book. I was reading it somewhere and I left it somewhere. The main character, the grandmother, was like, you need your own room. You're getting older now. You need your own space. And she was so elated to have her own. She was fine with sharing a room with the brother. And when she gets her home, she decorated the way she wanted to. But it's like, she had to end up going to a new school. But she looks out for her brother, though. She doesn't want her brother to end up like her dad. And the sad part is, since the mother has died, the dad has disappeared. And eventually you do find out what went down. And but at the same time, she's learning to cope, and she's learning, but with the help of these grandmothers, with her grandparents, and it's an awesome story. So when I finish it, I will give a more detailed account and more reviews. But this is another book that I think you would definitely love out there. So if you have any questions, inbox me, and I hope you enjoyed it. So again, the purpose of the JENX Book Club is to expose our young adult readers to what is out there, and to talk about, to let y'all know the same stuff y'all like to watch on TV, it's in a book and it's juicier. So when it's very important to expose our children to reading and to make sure they love to read. I'll admit, growing up, I hated reading, even though my mom was an ELA teacher and she would pay us and she would sign us up for the different programs. I just didn't love to read, and it wasn't until I realized, hold up, I'm about to be an ELA teacher and I don't like to read, so I started reading young adult novels, and I haven't stopped ever since. If you follow me on Miss Jinx the Teach on IG, you will definitely see me promote different books that I'm reading, and I'm going to do more live videos. Again, if you have any questions, parents, if you want to know what can I do to make sure those scores go up, number one, let them read. And don't be so bent on what they can't read. Allow them to read some of those books that do have pictures in it. We have what is called graphic novels. Let them read those. The thing is, read it with them and ask them questions. If you don't know what questions to ask, there are plenty of documents on the internet that can help you with that. I know my son, we read a comic series together. He doesn't necessarily read a book, but he loves comics, and he's allowed to read comics. But I told him for the summer and for the purposes of increasing scores, you do need to read at least one novel that's on your level, if not higher, this summer. Just one. He just has to read one, and then he can read as many comics as he wants. But he also has to do what is called a news ELA. His school allows him to sign up for that. He has to do one quiz a week. He has to do that. And then he's going to do the other activities. Like one says to read a book to a younger person. So he's going to do that. So it's different things I'm going to have them involved in this summer to keep his mind going. You want to keep their mind going. Okay? So until next time, happy reading.